I found a hidden door in my basement, and what I discovered shocked me. I've been living in an old house for a little over a year now. It was built in the 1920s, located in a quiet neighborhood where the houses all seemed to have their own stories. The previous owner was an elderly man who passed away before I moved in, and his family sold the house quickly. There wasn't much known about the house's history, but people often mentioned how strange the basement felt. I didn't think much of it at first. It's just an old house, right? But ever since I moved in, I felt like there's something not quite right about the place, especially the basement. It's not just the usual feeling of an old, musty basement. It's hard to describe, but there's a constant chill, even in the summer. The walls look strange too, uneven, like they've been patched up. Over time, I started to notice that there were areas in the basement that didn't make sense, like small gaps in the walls, a crack here or there that felt off. It got me curious, but I never thought too much about it until last month. I was cleaning out the basement one afternoon, going through some boxes that had been left behind by the previous owner. As I was shifting an old shelf, something strange happened. I knocked on the wall behind it, and it sounded hollow. I assumed it was just some old wood or a section of drywall, but my curiosity got the best of me. I tapped around the wall, and that's when I found it, a loose panel. At first, I thought it was just an old piece of wood that had come unhinged. But when I pulled it away, I saw that it was part of a hidden door. There was no handle, just a small keyhole that looked old, rusted, and almost like it had been deliberately hidden. I didn't know what to make of it, but my instincts told me I should investigate further. I spent the next couple of days searching the house for a key, but I had no luck. It wasn't until I was going through an old drawer in the kitchen that I found something strange. A rusted key wrapped in a piece of old paper. I don't know why I even bothered to try it, but the key fit perfectly into the door. I could feel the door give as I turned the key, the old hinges creaking in protest. When I opened the door, I was met with the most putrid, musty air I've ever smelled. It was as though the room hadn't been touched in decades. I stepped inside with a flashlight, and that's when I saw it, a small room, not much bigger than a closet. The walls were covered in strange, almost indecipherable symbols, like something out of an ancient text. There was a wooden chair in the center of the room, facing the wall, and sitting next to it was an old notebook. At first, I thought it was just junk, but then I picked up the notebook. It was old, really old, but the handwriting inside was still legible. Most of it was a list of names and dates, but some of the entries were strange, cryptic. The last entry was dated just 3 years ago. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. But the thing that truly made my blood run cold was the Polaroid photo stuck to the wall next to the chair. It was a picture of the chair, but it wasn't empty. There was a person sitting in it, looking straight at the camera. I stared at it for a long time before I realized something terrifying. The person in the photo looked like me. I've never sat in that chair. I've never been in that room. And yet, there I was, sitting in that chair in a photo from God knows when. I panicked and slammed the door shut, locking it back up. Since then, I haven't gone near it. But I keep thinking about it. What if I've been here before? What if something's been manipulating time or memory in this house? I haven't told anyone about it yet, but the feeling that something's wrong here has only grown stronger. Things in the house have started to feel off. Objects are misplaced, and I've heard footsteps in the middle of the night when no one is there. And every time I pass the basement door, I feel like it's watching me. I don't know what to do. Should I go back into that room and try to figure out what's going on? Or should I leave it locked away and pretend I never found it?
I like to think that I take my personal safety very seriously. I don't stand too close to the road while waiting for the walk signal. I have my location shared with my sister and mom. I keep my wits about me when I'm out in public, and I try not to dawdle after getting into my car. If I had only been more diligent about that last rule, I might not be in the situation I'm in now. Early this morning, just after midnight, I was sitting in my parked car outside of my favorite grocery store. I was exhausted from picking up a friend's evening shift, and so I stopped to grab dinner on my way home from work. The store is in an isolated part of town, but I had never felt unsafe in the area. Then again, I'd never been so late at night. The second I exited the store with my purchase, the old cashier closed up shop for the night and turned off all the lights in the building. For some reason, I did something I never do. I started eating in my car. As a precaution, I try not to linger in isolated parking lots, especially as a young woman who often has to run errands after dark. Maybe it was the hunger, or maybe the fact that, due to a recent breakup, my house hasn't felt at all that welcoming in the past few weeks. In any case, I was in no rush to return home. I pulled up an episode of The Terror on my phone and settled in to eat. I enjoyed a few minutes of blissful peace and quiet before a shout pierced through the night. I looked up from my phone and was surprised to find a woman standing in front of my car, waving her arms at me. My car was parked right in front of the store, facing towards the building, and there was only a thin sidewalk separating my vehicle from the store's exterior. I hadn't seen her coming at all. It was like she had emerged from the brick wall before me. She rounded my car, coming to a stop beside the driver's side window. She then started pointing at the ground, the universal signal for roll your window down. Fat chance, I thought. Though she looked sane and kempt, I had no clue what her intentions were. In fact, I felt pretty vindicated in always locking my car doors immediately after entering. The woman, perhaps seeing I was making no move to exit my vehicle, then told me something no one wants to hear. "Hey," she shouted, "there's someone in your back seat." My mouth went dry. Time seemed to slow as 1,000 horror movie scenes raced through my head. I could almost feel the piano wire digging into my neck, the barrel pressing into my temple. I undid my seatbelt and prepared to launch myself out of the car. Now that the intruder knew I was aware of their presence, would I even have enough time to run? With one hand on the door handle, I stole a glance into the rear view mirror and saw no one. My car is a compact hatchback, meaning there is very little room for a person to hide in my cabin. Even in my exhausted state, I would have noticed someone upon looking into the mirror. My terror fading to confusion, I turned around in my seat, surveying the cabin with my own eyes, and confirmed that there was no one in my back seat. Click. When I turned back around, the woman had taken another step closer to my car. Her body was barely a foot from my door, and her fingers were wrapped around the handle. There were a few more deep clicks as she tried, unsuccessfully, to open the locked door. I raised my gaze, and she gave me an odd smile, as though she and I were sharing a private joke. For the first time, using the faint glow of the street lamp, I took a closer look at the woman's face. Her skin was stretched tightly across her skull, making her thin mouth and nostrils appear as though they'd been cut onto her. Her eyes were deep-set and ovate, and her teeth seemed both too small and too numerous. I allowed myself a brief moment to gawk at the face before me, and then I threw my car into reverse and hightailed it out of the lot. For a few disheartening seconds, the woman held onto the door, keeping in step with my vehicle as I backed up. Luckily, she soon let go, and I drove away, my mind racing with the realization that the woman was trying to bait me out of my car. Even more disturbing was the fact that it had almost worked. I wondered if she had others with her that I simply hadn't seen, and what she had wanted from me. I hoped I had narrowly escaped a robbery, as opposed to something much more sinister. I got back to my house 20 minutes later. Still shaken from my encounter, I rushed inside the house and made sure that all of my doors and windows were locked. My exhaustion did little to soothe my nerves. My mind played tricks on me as I got ready for bed, conjuring up flashes of the woman's face in the dark corners of my house. Once I finally fell asleep, my fears followed me from the waking world. I had a long, vivid nightmare, most of which I've either forgotten or is irrelevant to this account. All I know is that when I jolted awake some hours later, it was to the sound of a frantic banging on my front door. I sat up in bed, unsure if I was still dreaming or not. My alarm clock read 4:17. It was far too early for someone to be knocking on my door, unless there was some kind of emergency, which, given the forcefulness of the knocks, there may have been. Slowly, I rose from my bed and inched towards the entryway. I had never before been in such a situation, and was at somewhat of a loss as to how to react. I didn't smell a fire, thankfully, but that didn't mean all was well. Suddenly, I heard a man's voice calling out my name in a questioning tone. It sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't immediately place it. "Who is it?" I called back. "Brian," answered the disembodied voice, and relief washed over me. My neighbor, Brian, lived in the house across the street. We weren't close exactly, but I often saw him walking down the block with his dog, Bailey. I turned on the entryway light, but as I was still in my sleepwear, I didn't want to open the door unless I had to. Instead, I called back to him. "What's the matter?" "Well," he began. I heard his voice crack, and he cleared his throat. "Do you have someone over right now?" "What?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. "No, I don't. Why do you ask?" "Well, the dog had to go out, and while I was in the yard with him, I thought I saw someone in your front window. Someone who didn't look quite right." I stilled, feeling as though I were in some terrible dream. Turning around and glancing down the dark hallway, I wished I had turned on more lights on my way to answer the door. "She followed you home," I thought. "She's in your house with you right now." I was ready to bolt out the door into the cold, but by some miracle, I had just enough presence of mind left to consider my neighbor's words more carefully. Something was wrong. I stepped away from the door. "Are you all right, Brian?" He cleared his throat again, and when he next spoke, his voice sounded slightly different from before, as though he were testing out a new timbre. "Of course, I just got a bit of a cold here, but I still wanted to check in on you." My voice wavered as I voiced a question to my neighbor. "But your dog, isn't it a girl?" Brian didn't respond. My mind reeled in the torturous silence, trying to discern whether the threat was outside the door or inside the house with me. After a full minute of complete stillness, the handle to my front door began to move. It rotated downwards as far as it could before the lock stopped it, then shook as the person on the other side of my door pulled on the handle. This happened several more times as the person tested my lock, and then there was a powerful bang, as though someone had rammed into my door with all their might. After that, there was silence again. I stood frozen in place for another minute. I had no peephole, but I worked up the nerve to walk into the living room and peer through the blinds into my front yard. In the distance, walking down the street away from my house, was a figure. Although I couldn't see the face, something deep within me knew it was the same person who had tried to open my car door. I watched her walk away into the quiet night until she disappeared from my view. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep for the rest of the night. I split my time between roaming the perimeter of my house, looking for anything suspicious, and sitting in my kitchen, running the events of the night over in my mind. The most likely explanation was that I'd been dreaming. After all, I'd nearly been baited into opening my door to a potential criminal just hours before, so it made sense that I'd have a nightmare about a similar situation. Then again, I had never in my entire life had a dream so vivid. Maybe, somehow the woman really did follow me home. She easily could have stuck a tracker on my car, but how in the world did she know Brian's name? And how had she impersonated him so well? The sun is setting now. I haven't left the house all day. I've been too haunted by the idea of someone trying to draw me out into the open. No matter how many times I check the house, I still feel as though I catch glimpses of the woman in my periphery, of her beady eyes and uncanny smile. I suppose I should try to get some sleep now, impossible as that seems at this point. I just needed to jot this down before I went to bed in case A, anything happens to me, and B, you ever think about blindly trusting the warnings of a stranger?
A new neighbor moved in next door. Everyone swears he's lived here for years. Everyone at the potluck was cracking jokes and elbowing this tall guy I'd never seen before, some mysterious, pale, Slavic-looking man named Tony. Dee Dee brought her usual 24-pack from the brewery, and somehow Tony was given the first beer from the case, a privilege I'd never once received. Then I saw Jess, our building manager, challenge Tony to a game of darts with her son. They looked like experts when they played, as if Jess always did this with Tony. Except she didn't. I'd never seen Jess or her son play darts. It was all very weird. I swam through the rec room, ignoring the Super Bowl noise on the TV, and individually asked my neighbors who this Tony guy was. All I got were laughs and reminders of all the great things he'd done around our building. Tony, he's so handy. He fixed the pressure in my sink once. Used to be a plumber. Such a nice guy. He gave $100 for my daughter's bat mitzvah. Did you know that? His 4-layer cake at the Christmas party was incredible. Remember the icing? I did not remember the icing. I'd been a decade-long resident of this 12-plex and attended almost all of our monthly parties in the rec room. I could tell you the names of all the residents and which suite they lived in. Tony did not live in any of them. Why was everyone pretending that he did? Eventually, I built up the courage to do what had to be done. I cracked open a beer, took a big swig, and then walked up to Tony with an open palm. "Hey pal, nice to meet you, I'm Ignatius." Tony raised an eyebrow and cracked a laugh. "Nice to meet you, Iggy, I'm Anthony." Is this a role play? I couldn't place the accent, somewhere between Budapest and Moscow. A role play? No, I don't believe we've met before. Tony chuckled again and lightly punched my shoulder. Always the funny guy, huh? Book any new roles? My last auditions had been pretty unsuccessful the past few months, but this was not the time to discuss that. No, I'm being serious, Tony. I don't think we've met. How long have you lived here? Tony giggled and clapped his hands. Oh man, you are very convincing, you know. I'm not. This isn't a joke. He dragged Dee Dee into the conversation. Iggy's doing a great performance. Check him out. She cracked a new beer. Iggy Giggly new stand-up? No guys, this isn't. I'm not doing a bit. I took a step away from them both, gesturing at the pale stranger. I don't know Tony. I've never met him. Dee Dee narrowed her eyes and drank her beer. Is this like anti-humor or something? Flustered, I walked away and grabbed the first person I could find. Jess! She was mid-conversation with Marcelo, who was giving her son a piggyback ride. She spun around, startled. Iggy? Jess, this isn't a joke. I'm seriously kind of worried. I don't remember Tony at all. Everyone says they remember him living here. But I do not. Do you remember Tony? Please tell me. Yes. Of course I remember Tony. She looked at me with a tilted head. For how long? I don't know. The whole time I've lived here. 7 years? 7 years? No fucking way. No. That's not right. What's not right, Iggy? Diddy and Tony came over, looking really concerned. Everything okay? I lifted my hands. I was completely dumbfounded by how all of this was happening. Utterly flabbergasted. Were all my neighbors just fucking with me? I didn't want to work myself up any further. So I let it go. You know what? Sorry guys, I'm a little drunk. All my neighbors stared at me, unconvinced. There was a lull in the room. An icy silence. Dee Dee took another sip of beer. By a little, you mean a lot drunk? Everyone laughed. The tension broke instantly. Tony even gave a little clap. Iggy, you always a funny guy, man. Every time. I left the party early. I didn't really know what else to say. I was a little embarrassed, but mostly frustrated and angry. How is this possible? Am I missing something? Maybe I'd been hit with some kind of selective amnesia. Maybe I bonked my head somewhere and happened to erase the root memory of some random European neighbor from my building. But when I returned home, I knew that wasn't the case. Next to my apartment 012, where there should have been a cramped slide door leading into the utility closet, was now, in its place, a simple mahogany door, much like my own. And above it, the numbers read 013. No way, this is fucked. I touched the door. It felt real. The doorknob, brass, the numbers, plastic. Bolting into my own place, I locked myself inside. I could feel the minute vibrations of an oncoming panic attack course through my torso. I exhaled over and over until the feeling lessened a bit. It's okay, I'm okay. Let's think about this. I was inside the utility closet this morning, recording power usage numbers for the strata, which meant I should have video evidence. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through my most recent clips. Sure enough, I found a video from this morning. The camera panned across the power meters, recording the kilowatt hours. 10, 11, 12 meters. Then the camera lifted up, showing the exit into the hall. From a skewed angle, I could see my door. I could literally see my door in this video. This video, which was recorded from inside the utility closet, which is now replaced by Unit 013. I tossed my phone aside and held my temples. What the hell is happening? Maybe I was having a mind blip. A random window into Alzheimer's or something. I washed my face, gave myself a slap, and did 2 shots of Crown Royal. After 5 minutes of building up the courage, I opened my door to take one last look outside. No sooner had I removed the slide lock than I heard Tony's voice. Iggy, how you doing? He was standing right outside, keys out, ready to enter his Unit 013, smiling at me with a small, jovial grin. He had to be close to 7 feet tall. At least, that's what he looked like in this low-ceilinged hallway, and he was looking lankier than before, with smaller eyes. Tony, hey. I tried to sound unperturbed by all my revelations. I swallowed a lump. Sorry for, teasing you earlier. Teasing? Oh no, I thought it was a good act. Very funny, as if I never existed. Really funny idea. I gripped my doorknob tight and tried to act as casual as I could. Play along, my acting coach would say. Play along and see what your partner says. How long do you think we've known each other, Tony? I tried to give him a friendly look. Feels like ages, right? Tony's smile widened, as if he had been expecting this question. He drew a circle in the air around me with an exaggerated finger. I've known you since you were a little child, Ignatius. Ever since you were born 30 miles away. I scoffed, alarmed by this accurate information and by his strange behavior. Tony was putting on a deeper voice too. Why? Was he now doing a bit? Since I was a child? I asked. Yes, since you were a child. You were inseminated on July 14th, and you broke your mother's amniotic sac exactly 9 months later. Tony's grew lower, speaking from his stomach. You first recognized yourself in the mirror on December 12th, and 21 months after that, you learned that all things die and that death is permanent. I staggered a little, tried to stay composed. Is this a weird joke, Tony? Who said joke? Tony dropped his pretend deep voice and looked at me with an earnest seriousness I wasn't expecting. I am taking over your place in this community. You have 2 days to move. My hand cramped from my grip on the knob. What? 2 days, Iggy. 2? Yes, I am a, observer. I have observed many lives on Earth. Yours looked fun. Lots of friends. Close by families with young children. All in one apartment. Perfect life for Skevdoc. Skev. My name. You can tell whoever you want. No one will believe you. Skevdoc is already here. Nothing you can do. I was shocked. I didn't quite know who or what I was talking to. But these were literally the words that came out of his mouth. Why did you bring up young children? I will swap them eventually too, with fresh Skevlings. No one will notice or care. Just like with you. It might have been the hallway light, but his neck and limbs appeared to have lengthened ever so slightly. His eyes looked smaller too. I took another step back and prepared to close the door. I was overwhelmed by this whole entire evening. But Tony kept talking, pointing directly at my face. I'm replacing you, Ignatius. They will start to forget you tomorrow, and the day after, they will forget you completely. If you are not gone by day 3, you will die. I let go of the doorknob. My hand was shaking too much to hold it. I brought my hands up to my face. And that's when Tony burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. He slapped the wall beside him. Ha ha ha, gotcha. It's all a joke, Iggy. All joke. He draped a hand over my shoulder and gave a squeeze. It was surprisingly hard. It held me quite firmly in place. Pretty good, right? I am a good actor, right? I could barely bring myself to look up at his face. When I did, I swear it seemed like his head was towering down from the ceiling. Like he was leering at me from the sky. Yes, I mumbled. You're a good actor. Very convincing. His pinhole eyes glimmered in their sockets. Good. I think so too. The next day I called a rideshare and GTFO'd. I had lived in that building for nearly 11 years, and I thought I would live for 11 more, but there was no way in hell I could stay after that night. I don't know how Tony was doing it, but he was draining me. Replacing me. I could feel it across my scalp the whole night. My memories with Jess, Marcelo, Dee Dee, and everyone else. They were fuzzier than before. Fainter. It was like Tony was scooping them out and remolding them into his own. My Uber arrived at 5:13 a.m., and I shoved 2 heavy suitcases inside and did not look back. I spent the next month and a half at a hotel on the opposite side of town before I found a new place. My family all thought I was having a midlife crisis or something, and I leaned into it and told them I was. I said I wanted to try living downtown, meet some new people, give myself a refresh. It seemed to be in line with turning 41. And maybe that's exactly what my life needed. Fast forward past a couple successful auditions and open mic stand-up sets, and managed to meet my new partner, Amelia. She's really nice. It didn't take long for her to ask about all the photos on my Facebook of the old apartment. 10 years of memories in that old 12-plex Evergreen Pines. At least I think that's what it was called. I couldn't remember the name really, or the address. I was caught off guard when she presented me with all the pictures on her iPad. There was a photo of me grilling sausages for some small kid who did not look familiar. There was a photo of me having a beer pong competition with a woman in a Molson Brewing hat. She was blowing a raspberry. There was a photo of me singing at some karaoke thing, surrounded by people, including that sausage kid and the woman in the Molson Brewing hat. After 10 minutes, it got really embarrassing. Amelia was a little offended that I wasn't remembering anyone from before. She accused me of trying to lie about my past or something. I told her that wasn't the case. Amelia, I'm serious. I know there was a reason I left my old apartment, but I can't remember. That's ridiculous. It's true, I swear. Of course, the more I started talking about it, the more I actually did remember a little. Despite forgetting all my past neighbors and friends from that apartment, I did not forget about Tony. In fact, Tony was the dark reminder of the whole event. By remembering him, I was able to rewrite this story with pseudonyms and my best guess as to what my life was like before. He was the one who took that all away. But Amelia didn't need to know that. I bit my lip and cheekily murmured, "I really don't remember anything, babe." She stared at me with an unimpressed face, totally blasé. "Oh my God, Iggy, are you doing a bit?" "I can't recall anything at all." "Right, okay. Very creepy, knock it off." "So do you remember these people or not?" I proceeded to nod and improvise names and backstories for everyone she pointed to. I told her that these were all very close friends, but we sort of drifted apart, and I didn't see them anymore. She seemed to buy it. There was just one last photo of me that caught her attention. A photo at a Super Bowl party where I was holding a plate of nachos above my head. Why do you look so weird in this one? My neck looked longer. My eyes looked smaller. I knew that was not me in that photo. I have no idea how I uploaded it onto my own Facebook account. It didn't make sense, but I didn't want to think about it. I wanted it move on, to close this fucked chapter. Oh yeah, that's what whey protein shakes do to ya, I said, doing my best Rodney Dangerfield. Amelia laughed. I deleted the photo. I've never brought up my old apartment again.